Man, I thought they hit the ground running last night, but tonight, man.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You want to run down that set list, Mr. Gans?
Sure, I wrote it all down in big letters. St. Stephen with the William Tell Bridge into the 11, into Shakedown Street, into Big Railroad Blues, Stop and Catch Your Breath, Friend of the Devil, Crazy Fingers, and Don't Ease Me In. And boy, that Crazy Fingers was really fun the way Bobby started playing it.
With his guitar figure from Friend of the Devil, his solo figure from Friend of
Yeah,
the Devil. There's so much to talk about. I think we should wait till we have our guest on because I'm sure he'll have some things to say about this set as well.
yeah,
But
yeah.
let's tell you what we're doing here first. This is Dead Air, the halftime show for Dead and Company's tour. We're back here for a second year. We started off in style the other night from Los Angeles, and we are watching the first of two nights right in the Grateful Dead's backyard, Shoreline Amphitheater, just down the road from where it all started in Palo Alto. And man, we're having the best time doing this, and we're doing it for a purpose.
The purpose is to provide you with entertainment in between sets rather than have a big card up that says, please stay tuned. But it's also to do a little bit of pitching of the product here. No, Nugs.net delivers high quality video streams, audio streams, downloads. I'm told that the Nugs.net streaming service is the only one that is entirely dedicated to live music. And we Deadheads love live music. And not only do they have all this Dead and Company stuff going back to 2016, but they have Bob Weir and Wolf Bros. They have what they got uh, Bruce Springsteen. They've got
Wilco, I always have to mention Wilco.
Wilco, yeah, Wilco, and Pearl Jam and stuff. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
immense live music library, and lots of other bands. I think the Disco Biscuits and people like that are in there. So it's a subscription service that you can get into, and also what we're doing right now is kind of a Lost Leader preview. You're going to get the first song of the second set of tonight's show in this little free preview on YouTube. And if you like it, you can subscribe. You can buy the whole show and go back and listen to the first set, whose amazing song list we just ran down for you. And then you can watch the whole thing as many times as you like for 48 hours. And they also have audio downloads. They have subscription packages for the whole tour, all kinds of stuff like that. So please visit nugs.net/deadco, or is it just nugs.net in general?
I think if you just visit nugs.net, it'll get you there. And in addition to subscriptions, you can buy these shows a la carte. This whole tour, if you missed the other night in LA, if you missed tonight and a friend of yours tells you this is the show you can't miss, and judging by that first set, I think that would qualify for sure. Then you can go back and purchase a show individually or purchase the whole summer pass and watch the shows at your leisure. You can start a show and then wait a bit. You have 48 hours after you hit play to watch a show. And then if you want to watch a few songs over again, you can do that within that 48-hour window. Check out as many shows as you want during the course of the tour. It's a really flexible and fan-friendly, as they say, system. And we just love it. We use it a lot for our pleasure. We use it a lot in our work because there's such an incredible amount of music that we can reference because we do radio
Yes.
and we do this stuff. So as longtime fans and students of this music, it's really a treasure trove, and for fans alike.
Indeed. And so for the duration of this Dead and Company tour, Gary and I are going to be doing this Dead Air special in between, and we're going to talk to various people who we think will be of interest to you. We had a wonderful time doing this last year, and as he said, we had a pre-recorded interview with Bob Weir, but today we have an actual live guest.
That's right. Our first live guest of the season, and we picked a good one, a good friend of ours. And if you've been listening to the Good Ol Grateful Deadcast, we're sure he's a good friend of yours by now. Deadcast host, author, journalist, immensely deep Grateful Dead scholar, and just an all-around swell guy. Will you please welcome our pal, Jesse Jarnow?
Hey,
Hey guys,
how are
nice
you?
to see you.
Yeah, likewise, man.
Everybody's in a good mood when we see them on this thing.
Yeah.
Wonder why that is.
Uh, I would think a set like that would have a certain mood elevating quality to it.
Oh, that was just lovely, man. I transporting me right to a Bay Area sunset. That was a beautiful thing to watch
Yeah,
and
It
hear.
was.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you'll look at a set list and you'll say that looks like a damn tasty set list, but the thing is, what happens within the songs is really what matters. And every one of these songs, they changed up the grooves. The jam inside St. Stephen was a
Yeah,
kind of groove they'd never played
that
on
was
St. Stephen, to my knowledge. Before they go into that swing and waltz part, uh, there was a section that sounded a little like the China Inter Rider channel. John was playing these little triplet things like the things Bobby used to play on that, and the 11 before they got to the 11 section, the jam there was completely transformed. Uh, they're just, and I think it's about the changing up tempos, changing up feels, catering to the strengths of the different players, and it's a constant source and process of renewal for these songs that these guys have been playing for years, especially the three older ones.
Yeah, no, I mean they were those were some very, very patient transitions, all of them. Actually, one moment I noticed was somewhere en route into the 11, you sort of got a nice view of the drummers, and Mickey had sort of rotated over into kind of percussion zone, and it was really just it was kind of the one drummer dead almost for a minute with coloration for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but one kit in the middle of the thickness. But
Yeah,
yeah, lovely conversation for everybody there.
yeah, indeed.
So,
So
Jesse, let's talk about you and your amazing work. The just completed season of the Good Old Grateful Deadcast. I'm sure you're getting this from all directions, but it's just been an amazing piece of work that you've been doing for several seasons now, and every season has gotten better, deeper, and more interesting.
Thank you, David, so much. So we just finished up our Europe 72 extravaganza. It was 10 episodes. It's I think it came out to something like 20 hours of content, which is sort of bananas by itself. Um, but it was just this incredible experience to get to kind of not relive the tour, because I sure wasn't there the first time, but kind of experience it through the eyes of the people who were a lot of people who were working it, in kind of all these different capacities on the crew. We got to talk to Sam Cutler. We got to dive into the tech aspect of Europe 72, but we managed to find audience members from every single show of the tour, which I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do going into the project. That seemed like kind of a challenge. That are we going to be able to find anybody who is at the Luxembourg show, and we locked down everybody, or every people from every show, and it was just so cool to get this range of Grateful Dead freak experience from these very specific windows in Europe in 72, and some Americans as well who were traveling over there. But just the perspective on what it meant to be into that music, in that world, in Germany, in England, in France, wherever,
And some of the specific stories you got from these people about how the Grateful Dead came to them. I mean, that's a pretty remote location, like Scandinavia and stuff. Like, how do you become a Deadhead from all the way over there? Great stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, and I found out that just how deep the Dead went in some of those places. We're kind of finding how their influence on kind of sort of the underground influencers, I guess you would say, of kind of that era were Dead for certainly not. Can't say everybody was, but like the German band Can, who are kind of now were an underground band in that era. They were certainly not huge in their lifetime, but are now kind of thought of as kind of one of the premier psychedelic bands of Germany in the mid 70s. we're dead freaks. And when they decided to build their own sound system, they basically showed their sound engineer a picture of the Wall of Sound. This is a little bit after year 72, and said, make it look like this. And he was like, I had no idea what I was doing, but I tried to kind of emulate what the Dead did. and it's sort of the Can were happy with it. But so if you see pictures of Can in the later 70s, there's this big speaker array behind them that looks suspiciously like the central vocal cluster from the Wall of Sound.
It's pretty funny. And you found a town in Norway full of people named Midland.
Yeah, well, that was my own personal travel. That wasn't even Deadcast related. So I got to go to Norway, however many summers ago that was, playing music, which is sort of a whole other story because I've never really gone anywhere that far to play music before. And our host was like, "Oh, you like the Grateful Dead?" And everybody, in our traveling gang, we're all Dead freaks. So we're all like, "Yeah, totally, we love the Dead." Like, "Oh, yeah, the Midland family is from right by here." And we're like, "Oh, you don't say." And he's like, "No," and condensing a little bit, but then it was like basically pointing at the highway sign, and it was like Midland. And we were kind of out one day seeing the fjords, like as one does in Norway, and he was like, "Oh, I'll take you to Brent's closest living relative and meet him. He said he's the town's bus driver." And I was like kind of mortified because he pulled us into this random house in Midland, Norway, and knocked on the door, and there was actually nobody home. But I guess Brent would sent for people. That was the town his father was from, and in the 80s, I guess he sent plane tickets and concert tickets to a whole bunch of people from town to come over to the Garden and see the Dead in New York sometime in the 80s. So
fun.
Amazing.
Anyway, we're everywhere.
What we are indeed. One thing about the variety of people you found, I mean, these random European Deadheads, obviously people who weren't Deadheads and had their first experience with the music at some of the shows, and also people within the Grateful Dead family who have not generally been publicly known people. Someone like Ben Holler, who was a lighting guy at Fillmore East in the Capitol Theater, and then he hopped on the bus for the Europe tour, had great stories to tell, about
gosh.
The ingenuity with which they put things together and invented things for touring and all that. And and there are archival recordings of, alas, the late Bob Matthews, and you of course had Wiz Dennis Leonard, who has one of the all-time great show stories about Morning Dew at the final show of the tour. So you get these, there's been so much literature on the Grateful Dead, and there have people who you've never heard speak about it before, or seldom heard speak about it before. So getting these perspectives was a revelation to me, and I've been obsessed with this stuff for 56 years or whatever now.
Yeah, Ben was a new character to us for sure. So many great stories. One of he's the guy on a bunch of those. He apparently would convince people in the various crowds in Europe to shout "White Rabbit" and prank the Dead. And you hear in it's a story. It's funny because people tell these stories, and then you can go to the tape and see if it checks out. And this one totally does. You actually kind of hear that happen in Frankfurt. You hear "White Rabbit" come from the back of the room, and you kind of hear Phil's mind snap a little bit. Why are people shouting "White Rabbit" for us in Germany?
Ben was kind of although he wasn't one of the pranksters, he was sort of a prankster. I was first aware of him in the early 70s when he was working at the Cap and working Dead shows around the Northeast. And he would also do a wonderful mocking imitation of a Boston Deadhead yelling, "Garcia!"
I've heard that. That's him.
That was Ben.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, it's, and another incredible thing about doing this is with the White Rabbit thing, it's kind of being able to triangulate all of these little, anecdotes and bits and things that are almost throwaway punchlines, but then you can actually like hear them on the tape and kind of like flesh out the stories, and kind of like they start to connect up to other stories. Like I gotta tell like my favorite little 3-piece story. I'll tell the 2-piece version of it here. It's like 2 pieces of a story that like neither of the people telling the story had any clue about the other person the other part of the story. So the one part of the story is from Wiz, and he's like, we were in Amsterdam, and my friend gave me this this bottle of orange sunshine pills, and we decided that we were on there was an anti-coke brigade on the 72 tour, and they decided to grind up some of the orange sunshine and mix it up into the tour's blow stash. And so anybody indulging in that is also gonna have to reckon with some other things. And so that was that's the end of that story, and that's in Amsterdam. That's that's like early May. A few days after that, a story that Sam Cutler told us twice was, oh yeah, the Leal show, that was an amazing day. I got so stinking high. I have no idea how I got lost with the band's money and the passports. I had to be, led back to the town square by some like very confused French people. Everybody was really nice about it. The band was very forgiving. But to me, it's just like you see these like couple of fragments. It's like, oh, I see how these things kind of start to animate.
Very good. That's just great. Huh.
But there's just like ridiculous details all the way down for the whole tour. It's just such a rich thing, and most of the people on that tour, that was their first trip to Europe. If they were in the Dead touring party, maybe a couple of them had been there before, but you don't forget that. Maybe forget if you go to you play a certain city a gazillion times over 20 years, but you're not going to forget your first trip to Paris, or or that time that you like went through Germany in the middle of the night on a bus with a bunch of freaks. So the memories from this tour are so vivid. Like they're so for everybody that has such loving, fun memories of this. Even stories like that are not that dark.
If you're just joining us, Jesse is one of the producers and co-hosts of the Good Ol Grateful Deadcast, which is available in all of the usual places you can get these things. And I recommend you listen to every minute of it. And whether you're 5 or 6 seasons into it now, and it's so deep, so powerful, and just sheds so much light on how the music was made and who these people are and stuff. And as I've said earlier, every season has gotten better and deeper, and I'm pleased to as a fan and a spectator to be able to consume it, and as a friend and a colleague, I'm really delighted to be able to contribute material to it, because you've turned it into this gigantic tapestry that's just magnificent.
Thanks. But both of you have just contributed just in so many deep and enduring ways to this podcast. So thank you both. We are now we're gearing up these few weeks into our next bunch of episodes, our season 6, which is wow. So one of the things that I think has actually kind of made it get into kind of another realm in kind of the last series is we've opened up this channel, stories.dead.net, which is a place people can go, which was there from the start, but we only really kind of figured out how to channel it and tap it more recently. And that's a place for people just to go and leave their dead stories, whether it's the stuff we're talking about now, or whether it's just like a crazy story that happened at some point that, you think is worth preserving. So there's, ways for people to just record the audio directly onto the site, or leave us a message to you and we can, email them back. But that's been just, it's like our answering machine. It's just a great way to get in touch with people. So with that, it probably won't be that much of a surprise to Deadcast listeners to know that we are going to be doing an episode about the Veneta Creamery benefit later this summer, the 50th anniversary of the August 27th, 1972 show, and we are looking for heads who are there. So if you were there, if you knew somebody who was there, if you've heard an excellent piece of Veneta folklore, drop us a line at stories.dead.net.
Do we know
Well,
if do we know?
neither of you were there. I know David
No.
saw them the week
No.
before that, but
Sorry to say, but do we know if Naked Pole Guy is still on the planet?
Naked Pole Guy is not on the planet, alas.
I'm sorry.
I will hopefully be getting a little bit into his story. I've got a couple of leads about his identity, and we'll be chasing those down for sure. But that's an incredible. And I'll slide in another plug here. I wrote a bunch about that particular show in my book Heads a bunch years ago, and there's now an audiobook of that, which has kind of a whole chapter about that show, and I'm looking forward to getting the chance to kind of update that and go even deeper into that.
Well,
We should mention your other books as well while we have that,
Oh,
while we're talking
sure.
about that, and the one you're working on too.
Yeah, well, supposedly. So the two books that I've written, the two books I've written, one is called Big Day Coming, Yo La Tengo and the Rise of Indie Rock, which uses another one of my all-time favorite bands, Yo La Tengo, as kind of the springboard to talk about this other world of underground music from the 70s and the 80s and 90s that's really independent in a very different way than the Dead world, but also in a lot of very similar ways. They're another band I'll go see 5, 6, 8 nights in a row when they play Hanukkah. And their set lists go deep. Their catalog goes deeper. They're an enduring American musical institution, just like a lot of the bands we love. And my most recent book, which is now several years old, is called Wasn't That a Time? The Weavers, the Blacklist, and the Battle for the Soul of America, which is about the great folk pop group, Pete Seeger's top 10 band, the Weavers, when a time in this country when Pete Seeger was in the top 10 and was promptly booted from the top 10 for his political views and for all of their political views. So that was one of those. So writing that book is people often say like the past is, kind of a mirror or the reflection of the present. But for me, writing that book was just discovering the continuity. It's not even a reflection. It's just the same thing, same people, same characters, same plot lines.
Jesse, we hate to cut this short, but we're told the band is getting back on stage with surprising quickness.
Wow.
So, as long as Bobby got to see the last few minutes of the Warriors game, I guess he's good. So anyway, so we're gonna let you go. We're gonna take it back to the stage in just a moment. But we want to thank you. We want to recommend the Good Ol Grateful Deadcast to everyone who's even mildly interested in this music. We assume you are because you're watching this, because you'll learn so much more about this music than you've ever known. Even guys like us are learning much more about this music than we've ever known. So, Jesse, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, as always. Just so much fun to hang, and can't wait to do it again whenever the next time is.
Great having you. Thank you. Thanks to Jacob Lima as well.
Right. So let's just go back to the stage right now. The band will be back with you in a moment.